Hello and welcome to today's video. Today is another video for our interview series, and today's interview is a little bit different because we have Kat here with us today. Because if you did not know, June is Indigenous History Month, and so we are very happy to be celebrating, and we're going to give you a little bit of the inside scoop on all things Indigenous. So let's go. So we'd like to start by acknowledging that we are currently on the traditional territory of the Mississauga First Nations. And with that, Kat, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right. So Anin Bojo, Kat Ndijnakas, Curve and Donjaba, Shaggy and Dodem. My name is Kat. I live in Curve Lake First Nation, and I am a part of the Crane clan.
Very nice. Thank you. We're so happy to have you here. I know from my perspective, I'm not somebody who knows a lot of the Indigenous community. I know Hannah took Ojibwe and has a little bit of background, so I just kind of know things that she's told me. So I'm very happy to get to know a little bit more about it today. And our first question is, what is your favorite thing about your culture?
I think that my favorite thing about my culture is probably how rich it is. You can learn a certain part of the culture in a million different ways, and you'll gain something from it each time. It's a very rich and interesting culture, really. It's very open and respectable of all people. Yeah.
So Kat, can you tell us like some things that you have done to advocate for Indigenous people in your community?
Yeah, so I'm a part of Growth Canada, which is a nonprofit organization. Um, we do a lot of Indigenous rights activism, and we do like environmental and pretty much anything that needs to be talked about. We're there to talk about it. And with that, I've done protests for Wet'suwet'en, and but I'm also doing a couple more surprise things within my community with the 215 Indigenous children who were just found. I'm doing a kind of a get together for that, as well as one for missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Such great things, and we're going to touch a little bit more on them later. So how does being an Indigenous person affect your day-to-day life?
This question is really interesting because when you first just said the question, and when I got to look at it prior to this meeting, I really at first was like nothing's really different. I don't think, but then I got to thinking, and certain things, like even just like when I go to my friend's house who live in Peterborough and things like that, and I ask for like a drink of water and they tell me to just drink from the tap, like that's so it's so different. We cannot drink from the tap on reserve, and it's small things that affect you on a day-to-day basis, like the water and the different looks that you get from people if you pull out your status card. And thankfully for me, I don't really, well, not, it's not necessarily thankful, something to be thankful for, but I don't like look Indigenous, so I don't get as much stares as someone, like I do have white privilege with my skin color. But it is like a day-to-day thing, and there's like, I'm very thankful for the fact that I can go to school and return home every single day, which is something my ancestors didn't get to do. It's it's a lot more of like living and being thankful for things that other children aren't thankful for.
Absolutely. And along the lines of those questions, I was kind of reading it too, and I was kind of thinking it from the perspective of somebody with a disability. And because I've been asked the same question before, like somebody just asked me the other day, they're like, how does your disability affect you on a day to day? And like, I've had it my entire life, so nothing really seems different. But then when you do kind of start to think about it, those like little things pop out where you're like, oh yeah, I just have to do this instead of this. And you really notice kind of when you spend time with other people who don't have that same experience. So I kind of get you in the sense of like the beginning of that question.
And so, as you mentioned, recently the remains of 215 Indigenous children were found at a residential school in BC. What actions do you think or do you hope will be taken after this discovery?
So I feel like this needs to be treated as a crime in the eyes of the government instead of just like a part of our history, right? So I really am hoping for some legal stuff to go through with this, and I also would really love to see every single residential school having a ground search for more Indigenous children who we know are out there and we just want them home.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great answer to that. I think that should absolutely happen too. And like I said, as somebody who's not a part of the Indigenous community or even like knows a whole lot about the Indigenous community, I totally agree. Like, people have died. Treat it like that. Don't treat it as anything different. If we found 215 bodies of just kids who went to a school in like mass shootings or anything, that's exactly how we treat it. It's a crime, and I totally agree.
Yeah, and I definitely think that searching every school should be like the bare minimum of what we can do. So, what do you think, as an Indigenous person, other people can do to help reconcile for all of these tragedies that have happened over the years to Indigenous people?
So this is a question that I get asked all the time, just by my friends and teachers, really anyone who's interested in reconciliation. Personally, I think the most that a person, the bare minimum someone should do is just be educated. Yeah, really educate yourself on things that are happening within the Indigenous communities. Educate others. That's a great start. When it comes to things like the government and reconciliation, we really just need more help, right? With the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and in Manitoba, they don't even take phone calls for Indigenous women that are missing. Like, it's such a big issue, and it's just not being treated as that. So all we really want is our crimes against Indigenous people to be treated as crimes and not just as another thing.
Absolutely. Kind of on the note of education, I just kind of thought of one more thing that I want to ask because, like I said, the best thing we can do is to educate, and I'm not somebody who's incredibly educated. So just even from an interest point, what is one thing that, like, if you could tell everybody one thing about the Indigenous community, kind of what would it be?
I think that I feel like we get this, like, everyone thinks that we're such like a closed culture and that you can't learn about it and you can't participate in our culture. And I just would like everyone to know that that's completely false. Indigenous people are extremely accepting, and our culture is open for others to learn about, as long as you're going through the right ways and doing it in a respectful manner. Nobody will be upset if you join any type of cultural event. Yeah, there's a huge misconception there that it's like really it's gate kept and everything. It's not. So I feel like people should just experience the culture more, really get to know it, and hand in hand type stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. I'll have to check some things out and maybe make it a goal of mine to find something to kind of either learn or participate in, and maybe Hannah can teach me her ways.
Yeah.
Teach me some Ojibwe or something like that.
Thank you everybody for watching today's video, and Kat, it was great to hear from you. We are so happy that you took the time to tell us a bit more about you and your culture, and happy Indigenous History Month, everyone.
Thank you for watching.